Kia ora, everyone. This is the second conversation I've had with somebody in Canada today. There's a theme happening. I'm speaking with Lucas Aaron, aka Range of Strength. Mate, there's no weekends anymore because we're all in lockdown, but what have you been doing with yourself? Probably since the Real Movement Intensive, where I sort of got fully introduced to you. What have you been up to since that wrapped up a week and a half ago?
Kind of making do with the current state of the world and working from home. So trying to find that new normal, and find a new habit for myself and the family. So yeah, getting through the day to day, trying to get my training in. My other job with the military, that's gone fully online, and we've been making our way back to work this week, trying to help one of the Navy ships get deployed out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to follow the new distancing guidelines and test 250 members, only 3 at a time. So yeah, lots of new challenges, but yeah.
So, mate, there's something I didn't fully know about you when you said the military. I heard it mentioned. What is your role with them, mate?
The fitness coordinator. So we're on the Atlantic coast of Canada. And yeah, our company runs, we're not military, but we are contracted to run the fitness program for the military. So Canada's kind of evolved into a bit of a different protocol for that. We used to be, ranked in under normal military regime, but now we're a company umbrellaed and hired in to come in and do all the fitness related things for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, being a Commonwealth country, like in New Zealand here, we've got New Zealand Defence Force, we've got Army, Air Force, which doesn't do much, and Navy, and we've got a few frigates and stuff. How are you guys set up there in Canada, or do you adopt a bit more of a USA type military model?
Yeah, we have an Air Force, Navy, and Army, like ground force. So where I'm at, it's very Navy focused. So I'm on one of the coasts, the Atlantic coast. So pretty much the majority of the members I work with are Navy. And then on the other side of the water, we have like an Air Force base. So we kind of bounce around a little bit, but yeah, pretty much kind of the same structure as the US.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so what's the evolution of fitness in your short exposure with military? Like when you think of SEAL fit, it's like long hours, resilient activities, deadlifting, being nuts.
Yeah.
You've got that background, mate, in powerlifting. Where do you try and niche yourself now?
Yeah, I've gotten myself into more of a leadership role with the team, so I feel like I'm basically now just kind of using my own experience 15 years in now. So I'm sharing a lot of that kind of train the trainer kind of approach, which definitely is good, but it also, requires me to stay on my toes and, walk the walk, talk the talk kind of thing, make sure that I'm keeping myself up to date.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I first got in, it was kind of like front line. You're running all of the troops through their fitness classes and conducting evaluations. And now I'm kind of in that role where we're trying to kind of prosper the program and build something more specific to their needs. So it's dynamic and it's always changing. It's one of those environments where you have to adopt all the time, or adapt to like the ever-changing military. They're always changing.
And so, like, obviously it's a big system. How much wiggle room and how much research and backing do you need to have to bring something new to the table?
Quite a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of red tape, right? Like you're now in kind of the mix of the government. So yeah, every time we try to, do something new, it's got to be approved by, 6 different areas or sections, and, sectioned off in all these different ways. So I guess that's kind of the area where you have to get good at, like trying to figure out how to kind of work the system to kind of get what you want. And we've found ways to do that. I would say in the last 10 years that I've been there, we've really, brought, the military culture to more modernized training. Like if you walk into our gyms now, you'll see, everything's outfitted like I guess like a box, like you would call
Mm-hmm.
it, like more functional style, open training. And there's still like a lot of old dogs that still like their machines and stuff like that. But no, we've been able to even get into the ships, like where I work with the Navy, and set things up for them on ship while they're away, so that they're not clunking around a bunch of big wasteful equipment at sea, but rather they have like the functional space to move, and kind of change the culture a little bit that way. Like we have very much gone more towards the movement side of things, and I think they're happy like to be on board with those kind of things, because you're very limited when you're in a small ship or posted to land, like in what you can do. So you have to be quite creative, right?
Yeah, and I suppose that's what we're all learning right now with COVID-19 and isolation, when you can't get to the
Yeah,
gym. And mate,
yeah,
your splits course that you ran us through, side splits that you ran us through, and the intensive, I've been chucking that out every 3 days,
yeah.
um, and I'm surprised at all these little back muscles that I'm finding, even though I'm trying to stretch my adductors and activate my adductors and glutes. Man, how powerful is it? Like what did you say about learning to stretch properly? Stretching properly is actually training.
Yeah, strength training. Yeah, and that's kind of the big mind shift, or that big like aha moment when you start getting into flexibility and mobility a little bit deeper, is you start realizing that it's its own training protocol, and you can relate it to a lot of the things we already know. And when you start doing that, you start realizing the bigger picture there. Like there's so much to it. So yeah, that's
I guess it's like, actually, when you take a step back, it's glaringly obvious. Like when you watch the Olympics, one of the marquee events of the Olympics is gymnastics, and all these guys are doing is these massive holds in extreme positions,
yeah,
they may not be tall, but they're humongous guys.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
how do you get muscle bound? Oh, well, guess what? Do what they do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're lengthening tissue. You're holding those positions um, for any given time, and you're always challenging those positions. As it gets easier to move into something that's more advanced. So yeah, it's definitely a mindset shift when you start getting into that aspect of it, shifting it away from, the, I guess, the general mindset of, just relax and, stretch a
Mhm.
little bit at the end of your workout kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And just before we move forward, staying with the military, you said you guys are contractors. Do you have much sort of influence from research and other entities assessing what you're doing and looking at your outcomes and stuff like that? Is that a useful thing to be part of a system, and that you can sort of prove or disprove your theories?
Yeah, we do have a research and development team, but the heavy focus in the military is evaluating trades.
Hmm.
That's the big focus. So any given trade that has, any special kind of job requirements, our research and development team is always trying to evaluate how we can evaluate those requirements. Um, so yeah, it's on the training side of it. We have that team that tells us, this is the best way for you to implement training to units on a yearly, annual basis, quarterly basis. They kind of leave that in our hands. Like, we're hired on as people who are already capable to do that. But then I guess on the deeper research side of it, it's always about just evaluating what's their job requirements.
Mm.
How can we evaluate job requirements and that kind of thing? So it's a little more specific to job kind of focused movement, which is good and bad. Like if I assess you and I say, okay, this is all that's required for you to dig a ditch. Like, okay, that's one thing of it. So I would say you kind of have to have that outside of the box thinking if you're going to offer a better service for them as well, right? So it'd be one thing to say, all you need to do is twist and move in this much plane. But if I just show you only that, I'm really limiting you to so much movement, and really, it's all about that. You're losing all that, I guess we would call range of strength, because you're just moving in that one area and you're only strengthening. So there is that side of it that sometimes is a bit of a challenge where, yeah, we always know, okay, we're always assessing what they're required to do, but there's so much more outside of that. You don't want to be, pigeonholed into thinking that it's only that one way. Yeah.
It's like with the military, you're training the elite sport for like say job activities. They're trying to do a job to the greatest of their ability. And I had Patrick Davenport on yesterday, and we were talking about rowing, and same thing. You think about the rowing motion, and it's all about as perfect as you can be through those ranges of movement. But really, it's about when the balance is out with your crew members not working, when the wind's going sideways, and it's all those other movements. And if you're not able to uncoil that tension or balance that tension in other places, then exactly like you said, you end up pigeonholed, and that's where injuries happen. So when you're coaching your coaches, is it about sort of getting that frame of mind of building this complete, well, it is an athlete really, isn't it, for the job at hand, but that complete and resilient human, is that where you're sort of imparting your experience and knowledge?
Oh yeah, for sure. So we have a tactical athlete program, and that's really the encompassing aspect of that program is more of like a embodied system that has all of the elements in there. So, not just looking at what's required, but looking at all the other things. I guess you would relate it to, the thought of sport specific training being something that's good for an athlete. It's actually the opposite of that. It's, your training and development should be, you have your time where you practice, to get stronger and better. You don't just keep practicing. It's like, you got to work on your flexibility. You got to work on your strength in these positions, and have that structural balance in your body to perform. Right. So, you can get people excited by promoting something that's called tactical athlete, but when you come into the training, it's very much like, okay, we're learning how to strength train properly. We're learning how to move through the fullest range of motion that we can. You know what I mean? We're learning how to mitigate as many injuries as possible. So you can make that stuff more exciting when you put good labels on it, but yeah, that's kind of,
I love it. Polishing turds, eh? It's about
that's right.
doing the shit work.
Yeah,
it's very good. So talk us through your journey personally, and then like you said, you've been with that crew 10, 15 years. Is how you said. Like, talk us through your journey.
I've been working as a coach now for 15 years. 10 years has been with the military specific work. But I got into this field of work just through kind of evolving into a bit of a gym rat after high school. I always played competitive sports, had some injuries. Specifically at the time when I really got in the gym was my ACL. I was a rugby player. And I feel like I was lucky to have an orthopedic surgeon at the time who really worked with me to avoid surgery. So that would have been, when would that have been? 2002, 2001, long time ago. But, I feel like I was, on the luckier side of things where he had me, with a physical therapist in the weight room training. Like, I find, nowadays it's more like if you get that injury, it's like the next day you're operated on. There's not a question about, let's just get the operation done and move on kind of thing. You're kind of a second thought after that. So, at that time, I was in the weight room, and I got stuck on. That was where I was all the time. I wasn't playing sports. So that kind of evolved into, getting into competitively lifting and training in the gym, which got into powerlifting, and started competing that way, and that kind of took off into working in the field. So yeah, that was just 15 years ago. I started working as a coach along the way. So when you were on the intensive, if you saw that first presentation I had about like kind of what happened to me, I did have a bad bicep rupture in powerlifting. And, I was powerlifting to a point where I was competing at a national level. And, obviously at that, you start getting to that point where you're trying to push the envelope a bit, see if you can go to the world stage, and you get really caught up in that, what you're doing, any kind of interest you have in life, it kind of starts taking over everything. And then that injury happened. That was a big blow to, I guess, my identity, because I mean, maybe if someone like a cyclist was moving a box and tore their bicep, they might not have been as kind of messed up as I was, but I had, become powerlifter. I was a lot heavier at the time. I was, 25 kilos heavier than I am right now. And at that level, and that composition, you're really capable and really good at doing three things: squat, bench, and deadlift. So when that happened and all of a sudden I wasn't able to squat, bench, or deadlift, I mean, that was a huge mindset shift for me, man. I started recovering, started all right, I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to do some cardio. It's really all I can do. And all of a sudden, like, my body's just fucked. Joints, everything was just a mess. And, kind of hits you like I was so far gone that I hadn't even thought about the shape outside of what I was training for. And then things kind of fell off for a while. I didn't get in like at all for like a whole year. I mean, at that time I was working for the military. So maybe I was lucky in that sense that I was able to slip and continue to have a job, because I think if I would have been a trainer on my own, kind of in the grind, I probably wouldn't have been working, because I really kind of slipped there for a year. Like, I stopped training, and you lose that identity. I didn't have that identity anymore. I wasn't, and I couldn't figure out like where I wanted to go with things. But that was where things turned around, and lucky to be in the field of work I was doing, and having to hike the socks up and figure out what direction I wanted to go with things. And that was when I started diving into a lot of different things and got really hooked on flexibility. I just I think you get hooked on things you weren't able to do and you realize you can do. And that's when you start realizing, like, oh shit, like, there's potential for me not to be that guy that says, oh, I can't do that. I've never been flexible. I can't do that. And then maybe that's the competitive mindset that got me to really push hard in flexibility training and go for the splits and go, start making those connections again. I'm a big targets. Like, I need that target to work towards when I work towards something. And maybe that's why I fell off so bad after powerlifting, because I didn't, I didn't have a big reason to go train hard, like I didn't have. And then it was all of a sudden, maybe wanting to say, okay, I can do the splits. A lot of people saying, no, you're laughing at me. You can't do the splits. You're the powerlifter. What are you talking about? You can't do splits. There's no way you can do that. So it's, I think that's in all of us, when we get competitive, that competitive nature with ourselves, and we find those targets, or, we want to prove ourselves that we're capable of more, find those, there's so much more that I still want to do, right? That I know I'm not very good at, but that was kind of how that got to where I am now, sitting here with you talking, range of strength. That's kind of been going hard with that last couple of years now, like reached that point where, holy shit, who's this flexible guy? Oh shit, he was a power lifter? Oh man, he was, you know what I mean? Like, all these things. He wasn't that flexible guy his whole life. Like, how'd that happen? So that's kind of like, the direction things have been going. And I think the last year now it's more about those, taking a back track of how all these things occurred and presenting it to guys like you and guys and girls in the real movement community, and saying, this is how this all happened, and this is what I believe is a good path from what I've learned along that way, and what I know now, right?
That's the key thing, isn't it? What I know now. And that's like the huge humility that we get from you, Lucas, is that this is what I know now. Here's here's who I've been, here's where I've what my journey's been through. That no matter what your journey is, you can too if you really want to. I think you said, put in the work, you achieve that big target if you put in the work over time.
Yeah.
And if not, you'll get close to it and work through those ranges of movement. It's bloody awesome.
Yeah. And the range sprint this month, I think, you being in the community this month and seeing everyone jump on that, like it's not like that sprint was there to say you're going to get the splits in a month, but it was there to say you have a lot of potential that you don't know about. And this is going to change that behavior, change that mindset. And that's really what's happening is, we're looking at the day 1, day 30 results now because it's ending this week. And there's nothing like crazy drastic. Some people I think were already close to certain milestones and this kind of helped push them a little harder. But some people, you look at day 1 to where they are now and they believe it. Their positions look really nice. They're feeling really good. And they're like, wow, this is not what I thought. This isn't yoga.
No,
this is
I was just about to say that even for myself. So it's been 2 weeks of me doing that. So that's probably 4 sessions. Yeah, I've probably had 4 sessions of the splits. And like you said there, this is not yoga. There's been sort of the yoga that I've done. There's been horse stance. And I don't really know too much of side splits, but all of a sudden and you hear it talked about a lot is, engage your glutes and you think you're doing it. And then all of a sudden I was in that wide stance position and it must have been the horse stance where you see grip the floor. And all of a sudden I found the grip through the front of my shins and then my hamstring through my glutes up my lower back. And I was like, this is a new feeling. And and then like you said about arching your back and getting that straighter feeling and the hips going wider again, I'm like, holy cow. And again, you're saying about stories, someone that had a cam impingement and a labral tear, and again there's like lots of conjecture around is that meaningful or not. I think for me there was an injury and it brought that about. My range of motion was horrific. I tried for 3 years to do yoga, do piriformis stretching, strengthen that hip, but eventually I went down the surgery route and it definitely made a difference. And it's now allowed me to get in positions, but I know in myself that I need to work on the strength and the biomechanics of those positions. Like to all of a sudden have those little nuggets of knowledge and ways to do things differently, I think is powerful. Who was your sort of nugget person that gave you a little bit of a knowledge when you started looking at this, different way of being, from being the powerlifter guy to maybe I can be more mobile. Maybe these 3 movements aren't who I am. Maybe that's the story I don't need to identify with. I can be something else.
Yeah, like so around that time I started getting back like hard into training. Gymnastic bodies was becoming this very
Chris
popularized. Chris Summers started releasing gymnastic body stuff, and it was at that time it really blew up, I think, for guys like me and even Jeffrey Wolf, the Flexible. Like that's how me and him actually met. We kind of both came into that at the same time and started learning some of those principles and applying some of those things. And for me, even when I started there, I didn't buy into the flexibility fully, but I bought into the weighted mobility, weighted range work. And that really encompassed my strength training. And I think that was what I needed. I needed to find something to relate to. And I'll always be a strength training junkie. I'm always hooked on, getting stronger. Like that's always been my thing that I'm always into. So I started doing the weighted mobility work. And then that's kind of when that buy-in started happening. I was like, oh shit, there's a lot of potential. I'm getting more flexible. I'm getting more range just from doing some of these new movements through a fuller range of motion with weight, like applying strength, right? Like, and then that's kind of that mindset started shifting, and I started going a little harder into it. I started doing the flexibility work through gymnastic bodies. Started researching guys like Kit Laughlin, Emmett Lewis, Thomas Kurz. Thomas Kurz is like, he's kind of, now that I think of it, and I found him and I've studied his stuff, is I'd say he's the godfather of flexibility. You know, he's got his book out there, first edition, Stretching Scientifically, and if you go through it, man, it's still got a lot of really good current things that, you know, you could relate to, like FRC,
What's
like
FRC,
all of
sorry?
these. FRC is like another training system that has really kind of brought mobility training and range training to the forefront, more like end range kind of stuff.
Are they the guys that have those measurement tools?
No, there's just mobility, like Hunter Fitness. He's if you look him up, he's like one of the leaders for their stuff, like he was when they first started. But yeah, they're big on like getting into like end range positions and trying to get strong and move different in these I guess positions, you would call them, like less specific to what traditionally we would see. But yeah, that's, you know, started getting that buy-in. I would say, yeah, Thomas Kurz and Emmett Lewis's influence was kind of where, you know, that brought me to the next level, and started learning how to really stretch. Like realizing I've never ever stretched before in my life.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting in a position, you're holding for an actual duration of, you know, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, upwards of 3 minutes, and realizing, holy shit, like I've never stretched before in my life. And yeah, that's when things started happening, and I started, you know, finding those targets, putting the time in, and seeing that change. And that was over the course of like 3 years for me. So I think realistically, if you look at where I came from, that's not too bad. That was 3 years of ups and downs and trials and tribulations and learning, you know, from power lifter to splits. You know, that was, I think, I look back, it doesn't feel like it was 3 years, because there was so much growing and learning going on during that time. And I would probably say a year and a half in, I didn't really start buying into, like, knowing that I could get the splits and like really pushing hard for it. So I think, you know, a lot of those milestones that more frequently get thrown around is like 18 months to 2 years, but, you know, it's all dependent on your body, your background, where you come from, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of how that little trail of influences kind of took me to that next level. And you kind of learn your own way. Interestingly, like when it comes to things like horse stance, I never used horse stance very much, but it is very much everyone's go-to introductory movements for the splits. I use it more now than I ever have. But I think I gained a lot of hip strength through my powerlifting years that I never really connected with until later on in the journey. Actually, more so when Keegan and Jeffrey and I started like talking a lot more about my old background and stuff, and looking back at some old training videos, it's like sumo deadlifting and wide stance powerlifting squatting is basically like horse stance overload all the time. So yeah, interesting perspectives where you can see like where I came from, and you know, then now looking at, if I'm going to be helping others, what's the best approach for this, and you know, seeing how that strength is primary when you start getting in these big positions.
Yeah, and I suppose when you think about those compounded movements in powerlifting, the level of recruitment through that rear chain, like, it's just incredible how you can contract such a big weight upwards. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And pull and push all at the same time. Yeah, that must be a cool thing that is intuitive to you, and it's really fascinating that you've only sort of come around to that 3 years into your journey, that, hey, a completely different way of doing things, but those were some things that I was doing.
Yeah, as you kind of start connecting the dots a little bit, seeing where certain movements are very important, and certain strengths, right? So
with like Coach Summer and Gymnastics Bodies. What was it like as a community? You said you met a couple of guys, Jeffrey, Emmett. Like, what was Gymnastics Bodies like as a system? And have you looked back at it much now and where it is now?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I know things kind of went, a little separate after a certain point there. There was it was about 2 years in, and a lot of, they did have a thriving community, over the 2 years that I was involved in it. I made a lot of connections. In Denver, there was Awaken Gymnastics. I went there for some training. Spent some time there. And I think the direction that Gymnastic Bodies ended up, Coach Summer wanted to go with things was just, I think, opposite to what the community itself at the time had envisioned on where things were going. So I think now, I haven't really looked into it, but I know it's it's called Gym Fit or something.
Okay, right.
And it's you get workouts prescribed or something like that. But when it was originally presented, I mean, it was pretty cool. Coach Summer just kind of presented, a lot of really cool material that you're able to study. And and we would a lot of us would just study and talk about it. So it was kind of cool, almost similar to what our Real Movement's got right now. It's a bunch of material that we can study and chat about as a community and kind of thrive off of. So it was a really cool experience at that time to really be involved. So many people from so many different areas coming in and trying to, we have all these other backgrounds, try to understand the gymnastics or that kind of side of it and relate it to where we come from, or how we can, you know what I mean? Just, having that generalist approach with things, which is very cool. I still carry that kind of experience with me moving forward.
So do you think, was it the curse of Tim Ferriss?
Maybe. I don't know. Things blew up, man. Things got really big, and I think visions just changed, and I think they're still doing really well. But I know a lot of the communities dropped off. That I still talk to some of the guys that were involved at the time. But it's cool to see us all grow too. Everyone's doing a lot of the same stuff, some gymnastic stuff still, but experimenting with different things. Even seeing Jeff now, he's with ATG and he's big into strength training, and he's doing all these great things with everything he's learned. Right? It's it's pretty cool to watch people evolve like that.
Yeah. And so then, how did your connection develop with Keegan and Real Movement? The guys at ATG. Yeah. Just a moment. What's she doing?
Talking, basically.
Is she upset or no?
Not really upset. No. She's talking about Mimi.
If she cries, oh.
Because I'm going to go outside.
She'll be okay.
Right?
She's not asleep. Yeah.
Mine probably aren't either. I'm just in the basement hiding.
What was I saying there? Yeah. What was your connection with ATG and Keegan, and how did that come about?
That was really it really was evolved through Jeff, Jeffrey Wolf there, Flexible. So him and I have developed a strong relationship. We chat every day about training, and I guess just keep each other accountable to just life, I guess. But he was got in with ATG. Along the way, as that it was evolving, me and him always were chatting about that. My social media presence kind of died off around the time that Gymnastic Bodies had started changing. So I kind of started refocusing things in the military side of the world, and kind of went back into trying to take everything that I learned that way. And about a year's time after that, I started kind of coming back in. I had been talking to Jeff, and I was like, let's do a podcast. We did the first episode of the Range of Strength podcast, and it was just Jeff and I just chat and shop about flexibility training, and that got a pretty good buzz, and that kind of led towards Keegan. you know, like with what I was doing at the time, about a year ago, I started really getting hard back into strength training with everything that I had learned from the flexibility work, gymnastics, and all that stuff. And then I've been doing more of a mix of training. And then Jeff was like, "Yo, you should check out Key, and he's doing a lot of the same stuff you're doing, and seems like you guys would really kind of connect really well together." So I jumped on Real Movement. I saw what he was doing that way with the whole coaching, mentorship, and I was like, this would be a great opportunity to kind of reignite my social media presence and the direction I want to go with that kind of stuff. And he locked on for a second podcast episode of Range of Strength, and then we ended up chatting twice as long as the podcast episode afterwards about just about life and training and everything. And so yeah, that led to where we are now, where I've been helping out with course content, you know, getting members set up, and kind of driving that energy in the right direction that we were kind of vibing off of. So yeah.
So what do you think the value of having a worldwide connectedness of coaches? Like obviously you had that with a little bit with gymnastics bodies, and now again a different but similar idea of worldwide connection.
Well, it's so cool because it's what Real Movement is really focusing on, and that I think, you know, gymnastic bodies, but so many other communities have that and don't realize it, like or have had it and maybe didn't realize that that was like something they had. It's like all these people buzzing off of all these, you know, all these coaches, you know, all these just, you know, want all that information. We want to chat to each other. And if you look at like the events that coaches go to for training, I mean, 95% of the time or 95% of the time when I go to these things, it is more so just to meet other coaches, network, chat shop. And, you know, for the most part, you're always excited to learn something new, but you're there to learn something new and meet all these other people. And that's, I think, what Real Movement is really capitalizing on, is bringing coaches together, bringing these people together, knowing that we all have our backgrounds and experiences that we can all share and learn from, and we can use each other to basically move in the right direction and keep each other accountable. So it's, yeah, I think it's what we always wanted or always missed when we lost those connections. And now it's like right there. And it's really clear what it is. It's like, this is what it is. So yeah, it's been really cool to see it evolve in the last year.
Yeah. And do you think, you know, everyone's trying to find silver linings to being in social isolation. Do you think that sort of forced push to really develop something online that's worldwide and accessible has been great for you guys?
Oh yeah, that's I guess the twist to it too is like with the whole everything that happens, you know, it is like, you know, really unfortunate in a lot of ways, but for the most part is like, this is no better time than now to have this community for everyone. And you know, you're seeing it, you know, in the last 2 months, all these coaches and members coming in that, you know, are trying to find ways to pull that energy back up, keep their training going hard, keep learning, keep bettering themselves. Because yeah, when this does hopefully clear over, I think Real Movement's going to be a leading factor into why everyone had success during that time.
So they go into the podcast, and it was sort of the same in the intensive, where there was those short hour breaks to give the opportunity to talk to what you're passionate about. For, you know, and what do they say? There's a million podcasts out there now, literally. But what do you sort of think that podcasting and talking out in long form your ideas, and even for example, getting past yourself and presenting on an idea, what do you think is important about that, and how does it help you grow and learn and expand on your ideas?
Well, I think, yeah, an idea is just an idea in your mind until you start talking about it, right? So that's, I think, one of the great things that, you know, Keegan does in Real Movement is he gets you talking about what you want, talking about your worthy ideal, what your vision is. And yeah, podcasting is like such a great way to do that. And that's, you know, for me, I took a year off social media before last year, like just trying to rethink my approach with everything and what way I wanted to go. And podcast was the first step. It was like, what better way to, get back into it and bring that energy back in and to just talk about it. And when you talk about it, it becomes more real, it becomes something you're doing and something, that's, those affirmations, they mean so much every day. Like you can't just, it's just a thought until you start talking about it and taking action. And talking about it is taking action. That's what podcasting, putting yourself in front of people and just saying, this is who I am. This is what I have been through. This is what I can do. I'm interested to learn more about you. Like that's, such a big, I don't know, tool for growth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how long have you been doing Stag Roar now?
Yeah, so 3 years, and it was funny. The guy that I was speaking to this morning from Canada, this is the second time he's done a first episode, and with me. But it was really bizarre to look back on 137 episodes and go 138 now. Wow, this is a journey, and it definitely does shape who you are. Like he was trying to probe with who I am now, and it's like, man, it's so bizarre that what I've articulated, what I've had a discussion about, how it's changed my thought, my outlook, the things that I do every day. And when I first came across Keegan, I was also following Elliot Hulse, and one of the things he says is, what are you brainwashing yourself with? And Keegan is definitely something that I brainwashed myself with, and now learning about you, and Ben Patrick and Jeff Wolf, like there's some really good things to brainwash yourself with, checking the stories and seeing guys doing these outrageous things, whether that be, front lunge with their body weight over their shoulders, or doing the side splits, front splits, and then the awesome thing about your page is scroll down not very far and see this completely different shaped human who could lift massive things, but like you say, you go lift a box and blow your pick out, and that's the that's the identity and the career over. Like, man, what a cool thing. And I think looking at story and seeing how fluid story is a massive thing. Like, do you think it was, like you said, you had the job still, but do you think like a career ending injury did you a favor? Like for me, with my concussion in rugby, it was kind of a wake up call that maybe this is time to get out of this. And I played another year in Australia in a not very good competition, and it was kind of like, man, I should have made off 1 year ago. Do you think that it's something that's career ending, or you might have been able to come back, but never the same? Career ending meant that, hey, well, I've got a fresh start now.
yeah, and I mean, it takes a while for us to realize that too when those things happen. It's like I can think back now to just like yesterday, like to the mindset and the state that I was in when I was like down on myself and thinking that was just, I was going to just be that guy that said I did that thing that one time. Can't do it. I can't do it anymore, right? Like, when I was younger, I used to do that. When I was younger, I used to do that. But no, it's definitely, that's when growth happens, when we're confronted with those situations in life that we don't know how to deal with, and we got to figure out a way to keep going. We got to figure out a way to keep pushing the rock uphill. So I definitely feel like that was a wake up call for sure. And like there were times, and I look back, I have nothing against powerlifting. I love powerlifting. Like I think that just the whole journey in powerlifting made me just such a better strength coach. Like a good strength coach always should have some background in strength sports, and because you learn how to get strong, and you learn the competitive nature of it. But I think back now, and even to some of the guys I know that still live and breathe that, and it's like, it's one way of living. Like you miss out on a lot of other things. And I got three kids now, and they're busy beating, and I got to keep up with them. And that's one way you can limit yourself too is in, you know, the I guess the things we choose to do. So yeah, I think that, you know, definitely it happened all at the right time for me to figure out what direction I should have been taken or what direction I need to go to, just that long term longevity,
Mm.
you know, father figure kind of role that I think I just picture myself being in. I want to move well. I want to, you know, I want to be moving with my kids when I'm 80, my grandkids,
Yeah, yeah.
those are the goals and the things that become important to us as we get older. Sometimes we need a wake up call to realize that, right? Sometimes you get that like a blindfold on you sometimes and you're like, oh shit, like what was I doing?
What do you think? You know, looking back on it, you said about you could have become that guy that said, I used to do this when I was younger. What do you think it was about your personality or influences or something that said, no, I'm going to be a new thing. I'm going to continue to be, and you said it there, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep growing. What do you think about your mindset? You probably had that the same with rugby, like being a rugby player and then your knees go and you're like, I'm going to, and you found something obviously, but
Yeah.
what do you think it is about your experiences or the way you look at life that sort of thinks that just because something's ended or potentially ended and there's a massive wall in the road doesn't mean the end. It doesn't mean that that's the story that you go on telling. I used to. You continue to be.
Yeah. I think there's this grit there. You know, I think you develop that through playing sports. I think sports play that role on you. I played competitive ice hockey as well, so that ended too when I blew my knee. So yeah, but I grew up playing sports. There's some tough shit that happened. You know, my father passed away when I was 10.
Yeah.
You know, so certain things like that develop, I think, a certain type of grit in us as humans. And yeah, I think that's kind of the fire in me sometimes, you know, when I've been presented those situations is, okay, find the next thing. Like, what else are you doing if you aren't learning something new? You know, what else are you doing if you're, you know, sitting there feeling sorry for yourself? And I've done that. I've sat there and felt sorry for myself, and I probably will do that again at some point in my life. You know, it's bound to happen. You know, life's crazy like that. But, you know, everything that we do now or that we have done, I think in the physical world or physical culture side of things, I think that's why it's so important, is because it does teach us to be tough. It teaches us to get through those tough times. And, you know, I don't know if you watched Bud Jeffrey's presentation at the Real Movement Intensive.
Just caught the end of it, yeah.
That's really like he hit that out of the park. Like what strength training and, you know, physical culture has done for him. It's just allowed him to handle tough things in life and get through a lot of tough times. And yeah, it's that grit. I think that's why, you know, sports training, you know, learning the physical culture is like so important for us as humans, because it does teach us, especially during today's modern world, right? Like, and I looked at what you're doing too with the hunting side of things, and that's like I'm really, I think in the last couple years, really hoping to grasp some experience in that side of life, because I just haven't had that experience. I really want that experience. I feel like it's a very human experience that I haven't experienced, like I haven't had a chance to do yet or learn. But yeah, I think it's the grit, man. Developing that grit.
How much of that culture is out on the east coast of Canada, the hunting culture? Isn't it it's big in BC?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. Like it's like you can imagine where I am. It's very like kind of, I wouldn't say the sticks, but
yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it's the sticks.
Is Manitoba in Saskatchewan?
Manitoba, not in Saskatchewan. I'm in Nova Scotia.
You're in Nova Scotia.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm like far east coast by Newfoundland and like Prince Edward Island, places like that. But yeah, like I have a lot of like friends I grew up with where like that was a part of their culture, and it just never really was. Like mom raised me and my brother on her own pretty much.
Mm.
So she wasn't out teaching us how to hunt. You know, she was, God love her. She probably could have though, for sure. I'm sure she could have if she wanted to, but yeah. I've been on a few hunting trips, but like we've never like, that wasn't something I've really experienced enough or you know, yeah, it's a powerful thing, man.
Yeah, connection with food and you know being close to it, and yeah, I think Keegan's right. It's going to become a really important thing again, and it's going to be a fascinating time. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
mate. I think I've just heard her calling out, so I better wrap this up. Unfortunately, this has been
Cool.
really fun, and
Yeah.
it's awesome to learn more about you. And so, if people want to learn more and follow more, and then dive into it, where should people go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mainly plugging into the Instagram Range of Strength. So
Yeah.
at Range of Strength on Instagram is my big social media polling, and then Real Movement. Check out Real Movement. Yeah.
And so, what would you leave us with? What's something that doesn't do you wrong?
Always be a generalist. You know,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you gotta not pigeonhole yourself into one way of thinking. You can learn something from everybody, whether it be cashier at the grocery store or, you know, anyone. Like, just always be a generalist and keep an open mindset wherever you are or whatever you're doing.
I love it, man. That's what this
Yeah.
podcast is about. So it's awesome to finish that off. That examples of life less ordinary and taking what you will out of it. That's cool, man. Cheers.
Thanks a lot for having me on, man.
Thank you. I'll just press stop.